right, so we're gonna get started with shakshuka. Here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna get started cooking immediately because I want this to be simmering on the stove for a short while. And then for those of you who have been with me for a while, I'm gonna dive into my presentation and we will go through that and then we'll come back and finish off our dish. All right, here we go. Underneath here, I have my cast iron skillet. I love cast iron. I'm gonna heat it up and then talk about these ingredients. So the one thing that I love about this dish, and we'll talk more about its origins, et cetera, is that it truly is kind of a one skillet wonder. So, you know, this is what we love, right? On the weeknight. We love those dishes that are easy to assemble, not a lot of cleanup. Hallelujah. You want to eat something delicious and you want to eat something good. Think shakshuka. So I'm going to give this an opportunity to warm up. When it warms up, I'm going to add a little bit of oil to this pan because I'm going to saute some onions and some red bell peppers that I've chopped. And if I have time, at the end when we go through everything and have this thing cooked, I will show you how to chop the onion and the bell peppers. So remind me if we have a few minutes, it won't take any time at all to show you, especially for those who are new. For those who've been with me for a while, you've seen me do that multiple times. But I am happy to show you that again, however long it takes. All right, so this beautiful dish is origins in the Middle East. And again, it's a one dish wonder. So olive oil goes into the skillet, just enough to coat the bottom. Now remember, when you're sauteing, you want to do hot pan, cold skillet, hot pan, cold skillet, cold oil. What am I saying? Y'all, keep me honest, right? Sometimes the brain goes a little haywire. Hot pan, cold oil, hot pan, cold oil. Always, always, always heat your pan and then add your oil when you're sauteing. Not always true for every application in the kitchen, so keep that in mind. Now, I can tell that this pan is hot because as soon as I put that oil in, the viscosity of the oil changes. It's, you know, kind of skitters around in the pan. I know it's hot. So into this pan, I'm going to put my onion and my bell pepper, and I can hear that little sizzle. That is the best sound in the whole world. And I know that shortly after, I'm going to begin to smell the aroma of those onions and those red bell peppers cooking. Let me tell you, cooking on a weeknight is the best form of mental therapy you can have because we are deeply affected by aromas. The same part of the brain that processes memories processes aromas. So don't miss out on this beautiful thing that we call cooking. Create some memories and feed yourself well. So there is my onions and my bell pepper. Now because I am sauteing them, I want those onions to release their liquid. I want them to go translucent. I want those bell peppers to kind of lay down in that pan and, you know, soften up. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to help that process along the way. So that is also called flavoring in layers. So I'm a huge fan of flavoring at every little step that I can. I'm not a huge fan of just dropping a salt bomb in at the end of the cooking time. So I've got my salt cellar here. Always, always, always next to my stove top. I don't have to run to the pantry to grab it out. It's always here. Has a magnetic lid. I easily flip open. I cook with kosher salt exclusively. I reach in and grab just a pinch, right? And get that going. So that's our first step in flavoring and also helping these vegetables release their moisture. So I'm going to give that a stir. And here's the deal. Some of you may be going, well, how much oil did she put into that pan? Look, your pan size might be different than mine. So you want just enough to kind of coat the bottom of the skillet You want to create that slick layer, that polymer coating, so that nothing sticks to it while it's cooking. And so that's why you want to do it. And if I say, hey, put a tablespoon in there, maybe a tablespoon isn't going to cover the surface area of your skillet. Or maybe it's too much. So use just, your old noggin, use your eyeballs, go, okay, that's just going to cover the surface, and that's all you got to do. So we are going to keep that sauteing along. Guess what? The next thing I am going to add to this skillet is a little bit of garlic and some spices. So I have here on my countertop some ground cumin and some smoked paprika, which we'll talk more about in a minute. I love smoked paprika, and it's just an amazing aroma that it gives when it cooks, but also in the food, this smoky flavor. There's something about cooking over fire that also creates, I think, these, positive firings in our brain. There's something about that just primal cooking method with fire and smoke that makes us happy, right? But of course, I grew up in Texas, and we do love our barbecue over smoked well, and then we love our grill with all the smoke and fire. I was cooking yesterday at the cooking school. It was our last day of school, and we usually make hamburgers, and then we spend the rest of our time cleaning the kitchen, and we cooked hamburgers over the grill, and oh my gosh, the flames come up, the smoke it gives off, it just is amazing. All right, so there we go with those red bell peppers. And then let me add in. Now, well, first of all, let me pause. You can see that the onions are translucent. They've relaxed, right? I don't have to brown them for this recipe. Those bell peppers also have softened up. That's really all you're looking for. I actually do see a little bit of brown on the bell peppers and the onions. That is perfect. And see how quickly this comes together. All right, I've already chopped the garlic, y'all. I always have to smell it. It doesn't matter. It's an amazing aroma to me. And then that aroma gets magnified when the heat hits the oil of that minced garlic. Talk about the happy dance. My taste buds are in anticipation of this, doing a happy dance. Now, the next thing I'm going to add is a little bit of cumin. So I am going to do 2 teaspoons of cumin. Of course, I buy my spices in really big containers. Y'all probably don't need such a big container. Okay, 2 teaspoons of cumin, and there it goes. And then I'm also going to add 2.5 teaspoons of my smoked paprika. So here we go with our smoked paprika, my really big bottle here. So we'll do 2.5. Now, this is essentially a tomato sauce, y'all. But the tomato sauce, right, is not a Mediterranean tomato sauce, or Italian, I should say, tomato sauce that we generally think of. It's really more of that spicy Middle East, North Africa version of a tomato sauce that's going to make this just absolutely over the top good. And then, of course, I'm a fiend about red pepper flakes. You can add as much as you want. The recipe calls for about, a half a teaspoon. I really don't measure those, so you don't have to measure those if you don't want. And I'm going to give that now a stir around. Now, the thing that I love to do with the spices that I'm showing you here is I like to toast them, toast them. They're in the pan, they're hot. That heat helps those spices release. There are oils that give the flavor, similar to the garlic when you put the garlic in there. It's absolutely stunning. The next thing I'm going to add now, after I've added all of those spices, is a can of crushed tomatoes. Oh, here it is. I put it over here. So here's my can of crushed tomatoes. In it goes. Beautiful. I'm going to turn that heat down just a little bit. I can hear that sizzling. That's awesome. Fantastic. So you can see that this flavor profile has taken a totally different turn from the Mediterranean, Italian that we did last week when we made spaghetti sauce. So always think, and this is, let me finish my sentence. Always think about the dish that you're creating and think about it in terms of a flavor profile. Think about the ingredients you have going in there, what flavors marry well together, meld together, create explosions of flavor together in your dish. And once you begin to experiment with that, let me tell you, you won't need a recipe to cook. So really think about your flavor profiles. I'm going to turn that down because obviously that got hot. We're going to add a little bit of tomato paste to it. That's just going to kind of intensify the tomato flavor in it. I'm going to give that a stir. That is beautiful. And all we want is for that dish right there to simmer for about 10 minutes. And so since that's going to be kind of boring to watch for 10 minutes, I'm going to set my timer and then I'm going to answer all your questions and then I'm going to share with you my presentation. So let me set this timer. There we go, 10 minutes. And it's looking gorgeous. So just simmer. Now I have turned my heat way down and I hope that you can see the bubbling in that skillet. So you'll just want to maintain that bubbling because you want those flavors to kind of marry in that skillet, but you don't need a really hard boil for that to happen. All right, and then be careful, as I shared last week, tomatoes can burn fairly easily. And again, there's not a lot of liquid in here. So all we're doing is we're just waiting for those flavors to come together. All right, let me take a look here at questions and comments. All right, I'm going to stop sharing right now because my timer went off and this beautiful tomato sauce has cooked. Look at that gorgeous tomato sauce. Now at this point, my sauce is absolutely on low and that's all it needed in this cast iron pan to keep it bubbling. I'm going to take a taste of this sauce at this moment, and I'm going to see how much salt I'm going to add to this sauce. So I always have these little spoons. I'm going to just dip it in there, take the smallest amount possible. Oh, y'all, so good, but it definitely needs a little salt. So I want to adjust the salt level now because I can stir it in. And after I do my next step, which you'll see coming up, I won't be able to stir it around. So I'm going to go ahead and season this. Now remember, I cook with kosher salt, so the grains are larger. It's not as salty as table salt, but you're just going to train your palate to taste and then season. So here we go. We're going to taste. So good. It's getting better with each little sprinkle. I'm going to do one more little sprinkle of salt, maybe a little bit more. And again, I'm not a huge fan of saying, hey, throw a teaspoon in there. Yeah, your salt's different from my salt. So taste and season, taste and season. You want to feel and act like a professional chef? That's exactly how we do it in the kitchens. We taste and we season. All right, one more taste. I think that's going to be it. Oh, yeah, that's the bomb right there. So good. I can taste that cumin, that smoked paprika, etc. Now, the next step to this is we're going to add some eggs to this dish. So I'm going to create a little well right here. And these eggs are going to poach in this liquid. So I've got my eggs here on the counter. And I'm not going to move my camera. I'm just going to crack it. Now, you can crack it directly from the shell into there, but I like to do one step in between. I'm going to crack it into here. Make sure I don't get any shells in it. Nothing goes wrong with my egg. Otherwise, I'll get another egg. But I like to crack it also on the edge of the countertop so I get a nice clean break. I just give it a little whack, and then that goes right through the membrane and the shell. Open that up. That is gorgeous. Okay, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this egg right here in that well. Boom, goes in. And then I'm going to take my sauce and just kind of push it around there so that that egg stays in place. And let me just do another well. And I'm going to do one more well here. Well, we'll start here. Okay. There. All right. Egg, crack, and then into the bowl. Perfect. Into that well. And then let me take my spoon. It's almost like making a little nest. And then I will put another one here. I'm only putting 3 because it would just take too much time to do 5 or 6 that the recipe calls for. So we're taking a little shortcut. All right. Oh, that membrane didn't crack. Oh, that membrane's tough. There we go. There's that. Now let me just, got a little bit more of the white on my fingers than I wanted to. Now I'm just going to take this in here, and I want to make a nice well. Move that over. And then there's my third egg in there. And let's do this with it. Make up, a little, I don't know what you would call that, kind of a little mound around that egg to keep it in its place because those yolks will go everywhere. And then I am going to grab a lid. Okay. And then we're just going to let that cook. I'm going to turn it up just a little. And then basically these eggs are going to poach in that sauce. So we're going to let that cook for another, you know what, we'll see what they look like after 8 minutes. Because, there we go. Okay, awesome. Then let me turn this timer off. That has been 10 minutes. Let's take a look at these eggs, and then we're going to finish out this dish. Oh, there we go. Look, y'all, how gorgeous. I'm super happy. Those eggs have poached beautifully. And that the yellows should still be runny. Oh, yeah, that one's runny. And you can just tell by touching them. That one might be a little bit harder because it was the first one I put in. But that one there is absolutely perfect. Now, the way that we're going to finish this dish off is, first of all, we're going to take it off of that heat. We're going to add a little bit of chopped parsley. Now, the recipe calls for cilantro, but guess what? I did not end up with cilantro in my pantry, but I do have parsley, and I'm not going to let it go to waste. So I'm going to use parsley on this dish. And the way that I do that, I've showed y'all this before. You can see this parsley has been in my kitchen and has been used. I have some shears here. So what I do is I store it in a glass upright in my refrigerator with some water at the bottom. And then when I get ready to use it, I'm going to show you this. I just take it and I just chop off a few of those stems, and then I roll those up and I'm going to chop it. We're going to put that on top of this dish. And then we're going to finish it. Now the stems at the top of the parsley, absolutely tender. No need to de-stem every leaf. If you chop this stuff and you see a big stem like that, you certainly can just toss that out. But there we go. And then the last thing that we're going to put on this dish is a little bit of feta cheese. So let me move my camera here so that you can see that. There we go. It's going to look gorgeous with that green right there all the way around, and then some feta cheese. So I've got some feta crumbles here. Ah, there we go. I think a little splash of lime juice or lemon juice when this is on your plate would also be an amazing addition. So there you go. Y'all, that is shakshuka.